Welcome back to Inside Story. New Jersey has become the second state in the country to require a health care mandate. Governor Phil Murphy signed that into law after the federal government changed theirs. Now, it does show that New Jersey's on the move with health care. 92% of residents, by the way, were insured in 2016, so this would mean even more people on the books. A good thing or a bad thing, do you think, ultimately, Chris?
A necessary thing. I don't necessarily agree with the principle behind the mandate, except for the fact that you need that in order to make your universal health care work. Because if you don't, you're going to have you're going to have people who are the most needy in that pool,
and then the numbers don't add up for
exactly.
the companies,
You need some kind of funding for it. Although I do have a problem telling anybody you must insure yourself. I mean, it's a philosophical thing with me. Although I also have a problem with people going to the emergency room who aren't insured and basically saying, "Okay, state, take care of me."
I have the flu, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to do it. So it's a Hobson's choice.
All right, let's talk about heroin camps in Kensington that the city did clear out at great expense. $7 to $8 million it cost to clear out a couple of these, because you're also providing shelter now for 100 plus people who were living on the streets. Is it really a Band-Aid on the problem, or is it a long-term solution? Because about 110 literally did go to shelters. They requested shelter, so they were put into the system. But many others who had not gotten their name on the list in time are now signed up, hoping for a long-term residence situation, and they're just waiting. So are they just being moved to another neighborhood?
I think it's a starting point. I don't think it screams to me of giving up if you allow these encampments. And I got to say, this is a very difficult thing, and I think the city has done a good job on this. As long as this doesn't lead to safe injection sites and the horrors of that, this is a first step toward doing it. And nothing's perfect here, but you just can't allow stuff like this to send a message that we've given up and this is what the new normal is.
And the officials are saying it was a danger to some nearby schools and to the neighborhood, just the safety and sanitary situation there.
The fact that something like this would exist and is so high profile at this point, just an acceptance of it and a tolerance of it on an ongoing basis makes a statement about the culture of Philadelphia, which I think the mayor was unwilling to relinquish that. So they've cleaned out 2 of the 4. Right. They've got 2 more to go. Of the 120 people that they moved out, they're actually in rehab, not just temporary housing, but actual rehab. So that's actually a pretty big step forward, given the opioid crisis and the circumstances that these folks have found themselves in.
I mean, they need everything from really just an ID to get started doing anything and then get a job, and then one thing leads to the next. So it is the first step. All right, let's talk about Starbucks. Last week closed for an afternoon. Nationwide, 8,000 locations. That's 175,000 employees who were taken out of the work line, if you will, and asked to be retrained. Do you think it was just a PR coup for Starbucks to try to get people to come back and fix a brand that was very heavily damaged by an incident in Philadelphia several weeks ago, or did it make some inroads and change some people's minds, AJ?
Well, I think even if it is a PR, it's a good thing. It's a first step in a long journey of reconciliation, understanding, education. Look, in our society, we now have created these online communities which have become the new ghettos of grievances, where we identify with our tribe and attack the other. It's no longer about social justice, it's really about social vengeance. So let them at least find some reconciliation before you attack and kill them. It's a first step in a long journey that will take a long time. I mean, it's a dirty ocean of bias, explicit and implicit, institutional and local. It'll take a long time. It can't just be one bucket of chlorine that cleans that polluted ocean of hatred and bigotry.
And that when new employees come on board, should it be required for all new employees as well? Keep it going down the road?
Among the alphabets, that's just A, and then you have B to Z that you still have to do. That it goes from top. You have to, 1, take care of the dog whistle, the explicit bias, and then there are the implicit bias, which is the dog whistle, but there are also explicit whistle biases that go on right now. If you are dressed, not in the best way, you walk into a coffee shop, you get treated differently than somebody who walks in with a suit. If you're one color versus the other, you get treated differently. Those are the whistle. And then there are the implicit bias that people with an eye, each other, what they do, that are hidden biases. Starbucks is taking a first step in a long journey, which, by the way, all of us as a teaching moment should be doing, in addressing our own implicit as well as our explicit biases and bigotry.
Can I say something very quickly about that? And I like what AJ said. we also have to understand how our actions are viewed by other individuals. The other day I was at Newark Penn Station, train station, sitting down, had my handbag next to me. I was going into my handbag to get something. I pulled the handbag close to me. No thought of anything in my mind. An elderly African-American gentleman was sitting next to me. He looked at me and he said, "I wasn't going to take anything from you." And that broke my heart, because there was no sense in my mind that I was moving my bag over because of that. But because of his past experience, he thought that that's what I was doing. So we also have to be conditioned as people who may not have suffered from that implicit bias to know what our actions, what kind of impact they're going to have on other people.
So if I could just add one thing to the Starbucks conversation. I think that what the Starbucks leadership did was incredibly important, and to AJ's point, it's one step in a whole bunch of steps. I think one of the things we have to grapple with, though, is that there are recalcitrant racists in this country that do not want to be rehabilitated. We can only hope, and I have friends in the Deep South in Alabama who talk to me about their experiences in the civil rights movement and how they had to, from the power of the pulpit, move people away from the worst racist tendencies to their better angels. So that's what we have to hope for, that some of these people can be moved.
All right. We're going to have a break and then have Inside Stories when we come right back. Stick around.